Hi everyone, this video is to go over real quick some important information about classroom expectations. So hopefully if you're watching this video, you are starting to think about what expectations you would like to have for your classroom, and then hopefully this video helps you get focused and get pointed in the right direction. So the first thing about classroom expectations, you'll hear this a lot probably, but expectations need to be taught to the students. So the first thing that you should teach your students would be what your expectations for them are. This can be in a variety of different ways how you choose to teach them. I know, for example, myself and several colleagues that I know, they just have a Google slide presentation that they go over with students. And then as certain things come up, like there are moments that they've built in to be able to teach students how to do certain things. But number one about classroom expectations is that they should be taught, and they should be one of the first things that is taught to your students. The second thing would be that your classroom expectations should be revisited frequently. You need to touch on them at the beginning of the year, but then as you start doing things and as the school year progresses, you need to be hitting back on those expectations, especially during high behavioral times or during times where students might need to revisit those expectations, because just because it's the same with anything you teach. Just because you say something once doesn't mean that it's going to stick. It doesn't mean that they're going to remember it. And so make sure you're touching on those frequently and revisiting them with your class or classes. The third thing is that they need to be clear and they need to be consistent. Try to set your expectations for the year, at least the general expectations for the year, at the beginning of the school year. And then don't waver on that so that they're consistent. You're not changing things up on kids. You're not expecting them to do something one way one day and then the next day like it's different for them. And this will really help with students knowing what the expectations are if they do not change. It will also help with your students who are on an IEP or might have some other hindrances. So this is one less thing for them to remember, is if they are clear and consistent, it's not going to change. That really helps for that. And that they're clear so that they know exactly what you are expecting of them. There's no gray area, that you are clear and explicit in what you expect from them and what you want from them. So again, not changing what the expectations are and being consistent with what you are telling your students. And number four, your classroom expectations should be things that are important enough for you to follow through if they're not being met. So what I mean by that is you don't need to go through 100 things that you expect of your students. You need to pinpoint the maybe 5 to 10, maybe 15 things that are without a doubt non-negotiables. These are things that you will hold them accountable for if they do not meet the expectation. And so if they're not really important enough for you to care if students aren't doing them, then don't do them. There are several things that I do as a teacher, and that I might have as an expectation that another teacher might not, because to them it's not a big deal, and to me, like, it is a big deal for whatever reason, or vice versa. So if it's not important enough to actually hold students accountable when they are not meeting that expectation, then you don't really need to teach them that expectation. And lastly, how would you get started? I'm just gonna go through this real quick with you guys, but essentially what I've done each year is I write down or I think about what I want from my classroom, how I want my classroom to be, how it's going to be set up, really to envision like what the school year is going to look like for me. What routines am I going to have in place? Yeah, what my expectations might be because of that. So my idea for you to get started is honestly do just that. Think about how you want your classroom to be run, what type of classroom you want to have, what behaviors you don't care about, and what behaviors will bother you if students are not meeting them. Here are some ideas as far as what you could include in your beginning of the year expectations or just your general expectations for your class. Will you allow food and drinks in your class? If so, what expectations do you need to teach around that? Or if you're not going to allow them, like how are you going to uphold those expectations? How will students go to the bathroom or get drinks in your class? Will they be allowed to go during class? Will they not? That's something that students will need to know. They will want to know that. Number 3, how will students enter and exit the classroom? Do you have beginning of class routines, things that you need to go through with them when it comes to that? Or if you're an elementary teacher, is there a morning routine? Or a morning meeting that you will be having that you need to teach them how you're going to do that. Maybe there's some afternoon routines that you need to go through with them. And really for this one, if there's any routines that are going to be consistent throughout the year, this is the time to teach them. For example, I teach middle school, and at the beginning of each class, we have a beginning of class activity, depending on the day that we're on. And so each day it's the same thing. So I go over that with them in the beginning of the year. And so that they know, like every day on Monday, we're doing Morphew Mondays, Tuesdays and Thursdays, we're going to be working on Quill, and so on and so forth. And 4 is classroom jobs. Are you going to have student jobs in your class? Maybe you're not, and that's okay too. But if you are going to have them, this would be the time to at least introduce them or go over them with students so that they know what to expect. And even like in my class, we do have classroom jobs. I go over how they'll know when they are one of the classroom helpers for the week. And so we go over that whole system so they can see that so that they know what to be looking for. Attention signals. How are you going to get students' attention? Maybe it's just a 1, 2, 3 on me, or whatever it may be. I've used a variety of them throughout the year. So really, the attention signal doesn't matter, or what type you use doesn't matter as much as having one that your students know, okay, when my teacher says this, or when my teacher does this, this is how I respond accordingly, or when they do this, I know my ears turn off, or my ears turn on, and my mouth turns off, and I listen to the teacher. So attention signals are very important. And then lastly, but also these are just a starting point for you guys. How will students ask for help, or how will students get your attention? So depending on what class you teach or grade level you teach, this could look very different. But students will want to know how they can ask you for help. And that also, if they already know that expectation when it comes to that, it helps them be more in control of their own learning. If they do need help, they're seeking you out, which is kind of what we want. And then also, how will students get your attention? A lot of times this is they raise your hand and you call on them, but these are things that you need to teach your students to do. And so hopefully this helped get you started just thinking about classroom expectations and what expectations you want to have for your students. If you need help or any further help on this, don't hesitate to reach out, email me. My email is located on every page on this website. And so please don't hesitate to reach out, and hopefully this helps.